Coming up here on today's San Francisco 49ers Report, we're going to talk more about the news last night that I talked about here on the show, defensive coordinator Nick Sorensen being fired, and the Niners want to bring him back on the coaching staff and retain him. We'll see how that goes. Why it didn't pan out for him at that defensive coordinator spot, and according to a report, I've been talking about this for months with what I want the Niners to do in bringing back Robert Saleh. Well, San Francisco is expected to offer Robert Saleh the defensive coordinator job with this football team if he doesn't get a head coaching job elsewhere. As for that news last night, talked about it late night here on the 49ers Report. That's why you subscribe to the show, because when breaking news goes down, I always have you covered regardless of where I am. Matt Mayoko, NBC Sports Bay Area, breaking the news that Nick Sorensen will not return as Niners defensive coordinator. The hope is that the Niners can retain him on Kyle Shanahan's staff. There are a few attractive options for the Niners to now consider for the defensive coordinator role. Why did we get here, and how did we get here? Well, Kyle Shanahan at first last offseason, coming off that Super Bowl defeat to the Kansas City Chiefs, offered Bill Belichick the defensive coordinator job. Didn't take it. He wants to be a head coach. Easy to see why. Him and Bill Walsh are the two best head coaches in the history of the NFL. And then Kyle Shanahan tried to poach Steve Spagnuolo away from the Kansas City Chiefs. His contract was up. Then he returned to the two-time defending Super Bowl champions. Kyle Shanahan also tried to get Jeff Ulbrich from the Jets staff, but Robert Saleh said, I'm not going to let you do that. He's my defensive coordinator. And then Kyle Shanahan was forced to settle for the in-house candidate in Nick Sorensen, and that was a risk at the time given his experience, and I think that inexperience was his undoing, and it was on display all year. Nick Sorensen looked to be in over his skis, and he wasn't ready for the job. He had no previous experience as a DC. He had been a special teams coordinator before with Jacksonville under Urban Meyer. It's a huge difference in gigs, though. And so the defensive overview for the Niners here in 2024 and why Sorensen failed, I'll give him credit, and I'll give him this. Injuries certainly didn't help. Nick Bosa missed a lot of time. Javon Hargrave only played a few games. Dre Greenlaw barely played at all, a half and 4 snaps. Talanoa Hufanga was out for a majority of the year. It's not easy to navigate that. Charvarius Ward being out for an extended period of time because of the tragic situation with this family. There were also personnel issues with the wide nine. When you run the wide nine and you spread out your defensive linemen, you have to have good defensive tackle play. Niners got rid of Eric Armstead. They've struggled with the wide nine since they got rid of DeForest Buckner. They tried to draft Javon Kinlaw. He didn't end up being a hit. He was a mess. And so you've had subpar defensive tackle play and bad linebacker play, and that has resulted in scheme issues with this wide nine. The pass rush, also not good enough. Nick Bosa missed a lot of time, had double-digit sacks, but when you're without the Defensive Player of the Year player from a couple of years ago, that's going to hurt you. Yetur Gross-Matos missed a lot of time. Leonard Floyd didn't have that double-digit sack season that he had been able to put together in the previous 3-4 years. But I also think Nick Sorensen wasn't exotic enough. He wasn't creative enough. He didn't force the opposing offense to think. Everything was just way too easy. And the Niners' defense was papier-mâché, and they were poorly coached. For instance, when the Niners are on the road against the Minnesota Vikings, you have George Odom, a safety, and a career special teamer matched up with Justin Jefferson in the slot. How does that make any sense? Against the Lions, 4th and goal from the 4, you play soft off-zone coverage when you know the field is condensed. These types of things happen all year long. So now for San Francisco, there's a lot of pressure to nail this hire. The defense used to be one of the backbones of this team. Last couple of years, they've been in a downward trajectory. And they've also had a lack of continuity at the defensive coordinator spot. You had Robert Saleh from 2017 to 2020. He took the Jets head coaching job. You had D'Amico Ryans for 2 years, 2021 and in 2022. Took the Texans head coaching job. Steve Wilks, you thought he was the issue in 2023. You moved off of him. You went through a couple of other candidates who didn't want to take the job or couldn't come to San Francisco, so you hired the in-house inexperienced candidate in Nick Sorensen, and clearly he wasn't equipped for this DC role. And you look at how the Niners fared in 2024, they struggled in a lot of key areas on the defensive side of the football. 29th in points per game, 24th on third downs, 31st in the red zone, and they were bottom 5, bottom 6 in EPA and DVOA. So all of those are issues for why Nick Sorensen did not work out. Now, we're only beginning to start the show and get into everything here on the program, but first, you know what I need you to do? I need you to hit that subscribe button for daily and year-round coverage of the Niners. This is a massive and pivotal offseason coming up for this football team because they have to make a lot of moves to get back to Super Bowl contention and playoff contention in 2025. The two of the moves made by Kyle Shanahan, he's 2 for 2 in getting rid of special teams coordinator Brian Schneider, defensive coordinator Nick Sorensen. I've talked about all of these moves. We're going to continue to talk about all these moves, so be sure to lock us in and hit that sub button. I think this is a very interesting chart, too, when you look at the Niners' defensive efficiency from 2017 to 2024. This from at SF Data 49ers on X. That account does a great job of putting out a lot of analytical information like this. And anytime you are in the top right corner on some of these analytical charts, that means that you had a great rushing defense and a great rushing pass defense, for this chart in particular. And anytime you see a chart like this, you always want to be in that top right because that means that you're truly elite. So you look at the Niners defense in 2019, made it to the Super Bowl under Robert Saleh, upper right corner. D'Amico Ryans in 2022, year 2 of him being the DC, he used that season really to get the Texans head coaching job with the team that he used to play for. He's also in that top right corner. 2020, 2021, not bad seasons for Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans. 2017, 2018 under Saleh, pretty good on the right side of that chart. But the Niners have been lackluster on defense the last 2 years. You see Steve Wilks to the left, and then you see Nick Sorensen bottom left. That is not where you want to be, and that's EPA per dropback allowed and EPA per rush allowed, combining the two to see where the Niners' defenses have been. They got to get back to being in that top right corner, and they have to be better with stopping the run, which is my next point here. And this is why getting better defensive tackles, if you continue to run the wide 9, is very important. And Kyle Shanahan said during his end-of-season press conference on Wednesday alongside John Lynch, I'm going to do a video on that coming up a little bit later here on the channel. He said, we are willing to not have the same scheme, and we're willing to look outside of what we've done with this defense the last few years. He also said if we run the same scheme, we do have to adapt. It's great to hear Kyle Shanahan say that because sometimes he's stuck and the organization has stuck with what they know. But they got to get better defensive tackles if you want to continue to run the wide 9. Shoot, regardless of what defense you're playing or running, you have to get better at the defensive tackle spot. And with Steve Wilks, the Niners dropped from number 2 to number 26 in run defense EPA, and under Nick Sorensen, even worse, from number 26 to number 29. You shore that up, you get better defensive tackle play, you get better defensive line play, it makes the second level's job easier and the secondary's job easier, and you can see this Niners defense getting back to playing the ball that we know they're accustomed to playing. So let us know your thoughts. Who do you want to be the Niners' next defensive coordinator? Because coming up just around the corner, going to talk about some potential candidates, including this man who I'm about to pop up here to my right. I'm not popping it up. Producer Chip and Avery are popping it up. I got to give credit where credit is due. According to a report, the Niners expected to offer Robert Saleh the defensive coordinator job. A lot of thoughts on that and some of those aforementioned candidates they could look at outside of Robert Saleh. Before we do that, today's sponsor, our friends at Fume. Scan this QR code on the screen, or you can see what they have to offer at tryfume.com/chatsports. 2025 is here, and it's time to kick your bad habits, and Fume is here to help you do that. Have you heard that the flavored air category is quickly becoming the leading alternative to vaping and smoking? It's a whole new movement towards better habits, led by the sponsor of today's video, Fume. Fume is an award-winning flavored air device that draws flavor to your mouth, and it actually tastes really good. And it's very interesting how this all works. And it draws that flavor to your mouth, not your lungs. And it's a great way to satisfy your oral fixation with non-toxic flavors free from nicotine or vapor. And it's safe to use anywhere. It's a design that is also about more than just flavor. It's an awesome fidget tool with magnets and clicks that can help calm anxiety. You'll love how Fume feels. Premium quality, sleek design, and perfect for taking with you on the go. My favorite flavor, crisp mint. It's refreshing and satisfying without any of the harmful effects that you'd associate with your other habits. So, Fume has already helped over 300,000 people build better habits. Try Fume today. And if you order the Journey Pack now, using my code CHATSPORTS, you'll get a free Fume topper, an awesome accessory to level up your experience. Go to tryfume.com/chatsports or scan the QR code on your screen. That's tryfume.com/chatsports or scan the QR code, use that code CHATSPORTS to get that free Fume topper when you order your Journey Pack today. As for Robert Saleh, Josina Anderson with a report this morning on this Wednesday, January 8th, that the Niners are expected to offer him the defensive coordinator job. Couple of caveats here. What are they? Let's get into it. Josina said this, just in. I'm told that Robert Saleh's first head coaching interview with the Jags is on Tuesday. Another head coach interview is expected thereafter. The Niners are also expected to make him an offer at defensive coordinator, per sources. Saleh does have some familiarity with the Jags. He was the team's linebackers coach under Gus Bradley from 2014 to 2016. He used that job to then come to the Niners and became the defensive coordinator under Kyle Shanahan in 2017. I do wonder, Robert Saleh just went from having a bad owner and a bad organizational structure with the New York Jets. Is he going to go to an organization in Jacksonville that has a bad owner, bad organizational structure, and does he want to work with Trent Baalke? I'm not sure that would be the best move for him. If anything, I think Saleh wants some stability for his next job. He didn't have it with New York. He got canned. I don't think he'd have it with the Jacksonville Jaguars. But also you have to factor in, these are dream jobs, and these jobs are few and far between. What I think hiring Saleh would do for San Francisco, it gives you one of the top defensive coordinators on the market. It gives you leadership and energy on the sideline. I think the Niners need an influx of that. He also has this ability to maximize and develop players, and the Niners are going to have to get creative on the cap. They're going to have to bring in veterans or draft young players who are going to need to make impacts, and a good defensive coach and a good defensive coordinator will be able to plug and play those players. I like the makeup of this Niners secondary. You have some young studs on that back end. Malik Mustafa, Deommodore Lenoir, Renardo Green. Build off of that and add more youth to that defense, and Robert Saleh can help to maximize those young players. And I know that Kyle Shanahan said, yeah, we're willing to look outside of the scheme that we've been running. If you want to run the same scheme, or at least the same elements of it, hiring Robert Saleh would give you that scheme continuity. This Niners defense in 2024, let's revisit it. Just didn't do enough to confuse opposing offenses. The job for the opposing offense was way too easy and predictable. You knew what the Niners were going to do, and you think about how Nick Sorensen's defense fared the last 2 years, 40 burgers in the last 2 games against Detroit and Arizona. And those were 2 young offensive coordinators in Ben Johnson and Drew Petzing who pantsed Nick Sorensen. It was an awful tackling unit, and we did see a lack of player development or players like Jair Brown decrease in their development. It's not what you want to see. Saleh in 2020, this was a great barometer. After the Niners made it to the Super Bowl in 2019, he still made it work with a depleted defense. I thought that coaching job was very impressive. Shoot, Jason Verrett played at a Pro Bowl level. And this Jets defense under Saleh was very good. Don't just look at the win-loss column and say, Robert Saleh sucked as a head coach. No, that means that you're casual. But this is why you watch this show, because we give you good information that you can use for your talking points and arguments. The Jets defense under Saleh, first in points per drive up until he got fired, first in EPA per play, and third in success rate. As I've said for months, I think Saleh is the man for the job. Does he want to come back to work under Kyle Shanahan? Maybe he wants to go somewhere else to stamp his own legacy as a defensive coordinator outside of the Niners? Shoot, maybe he gets a head coaching job. As for other Niners defensive coordinator candidates, I think these are names to watch here. Robert Saleh, Jeff Ulbrich. Ulbrich played for the Niners. Gus Bradley, the originator of the Legion of Boom defense. The origins of this Niners defense comes from the Legion of Boom. You have Dennis Allen, the former Saints defensive coordinator and head coach who got canned this year. Matt Eberflus, the former Bears coach, but I'm saying please no. Lou Anarumo, a very accomplished defensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals, but he got let go, and he's on the open market, and he's going to get a lot of offers and interest. And then there's Richard Sherman. I just don't think the Niners go this route. Sherman said, I'd like to be a coach at some point, but given how Nick Sorensen didn't work out with his lack of experience, I don't think the Niners go with Richard Sherman for that reason. If you're still kicking it with us here on the show, I want you to type Real One down in the chat. Thank you so much for watching and supporting the San Francisco 49ers Report. What we do wouldn't be possible without all of you, and I'm very excited to cover this offseason because we've already seen it be busy for Kyle Shanahan and company. Firing Brian Schneider, firing Nick Sorensen. Hopefully, those are two of a lot of moves that are going to happen this year. Thanks so much to Fume as well for sponsoring today's video. Scan the QR code, use the code CHATSPORTS to get your free Fume topper when you order your Journey Pack today.